構ね、まあものすごく出来のいいディレクターの場合。
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, when I have really talented directors working for me, there are times when I don't have to get involved in a project at all, and it really kind of goes on its own and is able to come to fruition without much of my help. But there are also a lot of times when the directors do need my help, and I do get directly involved with the games. I like it a lot because I get involved deeply at different points in each of the projects, and I get to experience a lot more than if I was just focusing on one game.
今実際この2年半ぐらいかかる。
So yeah, I mean, as you can see, over the last couple of years, we've been working on new Metroid, which looks very realistic. We've been working on Mario, which looks very comical in the classic Mario style. We've been working on Zelda, which is very cartoony this time around. And so I've been able to work on all these games and be directly involved in them. So that's been really fun for me. We obviously have had a number of different reasons for the reason that we went with this very cartoon-style look for Zelda this time around. But one of the big ones is that it really enables us to show a lot of emotion on Link's face and really help bring out Link's character. Yeah, I mean, if we were to take and make a very realistic-looking Zelda, I think Link would be dead right now. So yeah, since we are doing this with the toon shading, the cell shading, we're spending quite a bit of effort on making this look and feel as close to a real cartoon as possible. So actually, yeah, you'll be able to see a lot of this on the show floor as well, but we now have a B button and R button, so we have two action buttons in Zelda this time around, whereas we previously only had one. And so I think because of that, some of the control from Ocarina of Time that was more difficult, such as trying to figure out whether you should be pushing a block or climbing on top of it, has now become slightly more, easy to understand.
You know more than Mr. Miyamoto.
I think I'm right in saying that the new Zelda takes place before previous Zelda games. Is that right?
I'm actually not all that deeply involved in the Zelda project, but that is actually the case. We have decided that the setting for the game is that it is kind of the very beginning.
Right, because one question we had was Link apparently has a sister in this game, and therefore where did she go to in later games?
Please ask Mr. Tezuka. 今回の研究のゼルダは妹がいますね。これが設定としては最初のゼルダ、物語があります一番最初になるっていうことでしたら、リンクの妹はどこに行っちゃったんですか？
じゃあ終わりにしましょうか。
Maybe we should wrap things up here. We'll actually at another time talk more about the storyline and the setting for all of that. But for this game, it was I did just talk with the director, and it was very important that Link's sister appear in this game. So Link wanted somebody who was going to call him Big Brother.
Yeah.
When I first met the Retro team, I knew that they were the ones that I was going to want to have to create Metroid. So I've actually, from the very initial stages of this project, been directly involved as producer. And actually at EAD in Japan, we have a total of 3 staff members who are almost kind of half directing the game in cooperation with Retro Studios. So our level of involvement is very, very high in the project. So I first met the team from that is now Retro Studios probably about 3 years ago now. And it was when I first met them and saw their talents with art and graphics and their game making talents that I really got interested again in creating a Metroid game. And but they actually had because they had several other projects going on at the same time. It took some time to get the projects up and running. So we've been working on this I think for about 2.5 years now, which has been quite a long time, and a lot of that was related to challenges and multiple projects.
非常にその
So I'm really happy that we were able to have this really great collaboration with Retro Studios and some of our planning people at Nintendo in Japan, and really work together and come up with something that has come out as well as Metroid has.
非常にこれね、今作ってるチーム
Actually, the team that is working on Metroid, these are huge Metroid fans that are making this game. And so we think the game's going to end up being very similar in style to Super Metroid. We've added the scan visors and things like that, new weapons. But really, I think it's going to be, it is going to be this idea of still having the freedom to come back and try new things later. So I think you're going to find that it is going to have a very similar feel. Well, first of all, I think that the Japanese Metroid fans will think that it's a very cool game. And I know that a lot of people, expressed quite a bit of concern when they learned that Metroid, which had always been a jumping 2D side-scrolling game, was going into a first-person perspective. And they were all worried that this would become a first-person shooter. But really what I think the key element of Metroid games has and will remain being is the idea of exploration. And so really what the conclusion that we came to was that in exploring this very realistic looking world in outer space, the best perspective for doing that was really going to be a first-person perspective. And one of the most difficult things of this project has been the morph ball. And myself being a industrial designer, I was always, it really bothered me how a person could roll up into a ball like that. But, exactly, what is that suit made of anyway? But we thought we'd give it a try and see if we couldn't at least make it look good. And I'm actually, that's one of the things that continues to surprise me about games is you can take something like that and even in this realistic world, have it come across and look really good and flow really smoothly. And I think really that the controls, not only for Samus, but I think Samus and Mario and Zelda, they have a very similar control to them. And I think that when you play them all on the GameCube controller, you're going to get kind of the same feeling out of those games when you're controlling them. And so for instance, when you press the L button in these games, the camera's always going to zoom in behind you, and you can hold the L button down and use the control stick, and you can do either some sideways walking or some strafing. And although this is slightly different, most of the games you can hold down the R button and move the control stick for a free look. And as you can see in the bottom left and bottom right corners of the screen, there are some kind of signs down there that are in the shape of a plus down there. This one on the left here is controlled by the plus control pad on the Nintendo GameCube controller. So it's with the plus control pad that you're able to swap between Samus's different visors. And so one of the biggest elements of this game is to kind of explore the areas and scan different objects to obtain information. And so then with the L button, you can lock on to targets there, and that will actually make it easier for you to target enemies and objects in the environment. As you can see, the game system is essentially based off of Mario 64 and is an expanded version of that. And in terms of the actual gameplay and the game scenario, it'll be somewhat similar in that in Mario Sunshine, you're going to be collecting essentially what's called shine. And they're these little stars that Mario will get that relate to the story of the game. And Mario will actually be going through and you'll have to collect these different shines in the different levels of the game. So it'll be somewhat similar to Mario in that you'll have to choose kind of an area that you want to go to, and you'll play some different scenarios to earn these shine stars. But one of the biggest differences, I think, between Mario Sunshine and Mario 64 is that in Mario 64, when you chose a specific area, there wasn't a whole lot going on in the areas, and it would just be kind of the main focus of the level, and that was it. Whereas in Mario Sunshine, as I think you can all see from the show floor, we've got some very large areas with a lot of stuff going on in them all at once. Even you can stand on one end and look to the far other side and see things going on there. So I think that's going to be a big distinction point with Super Mario Sunshine. So really we've done, obviously we've added also the water pump, which Mario can use to spray water, or he can use to hover around, and thereby it becomes a mode of transportation. So we're going to be placing a lot of the items in the game in areas that are going to be actually fairly hard to reach, with the idea that people, because we have given them a whole lot of freedom with the control of this game, people will actually be able to play the game and figure out their own route and kind of come up with their own ways for getting some of the stars, the shine stars, and the items in the game. So I think we've really added a lot of freedom to the control of this game as well. And I think that basically this game is really moving in the direction of, rather than being kind of a strategic getting from one place to another type of game, it's really just about the freedom of the player and being able to really get out there and do what the player wants to do and find their own ways to have fun within the world of Super Mario Sunshine. I mean, I don't think it has really changed my perspective a whole lot. I guess you could say that because, now we do play a lot together and we do spend a lot of time together, that has maybe given me more of a parental kind of a perspective on things, but I don't think it's really changed my game design a whole lot. So yeah, I mean, I think that there are a number of different things that players can experience in a game that they can get fun out of. Well, I mean, I guess, violence is kind of one way that you can elicit emotion and give entertainment to players. But at the same time, I think it's almost an escape route, and that maybe people go that way when they have a hard time coming up with other ideas for creating fun in their games.
皆さん当然ゲームのメディア
And of course, the audience here today, all of you are gaming media, and I know you're all hardcore gamers and you love gaming, and I won't deny you that pleasure, but I also think that games are not just for the hardcore gamer. I think they're really for a much wider audience than that. And of course, you guys are all a very important group of customers for me, and I will always continue to create games that I think are going to entertain you all. But the fact of the matter is, lately there have been a lot of comments from people that worry that maybe games are becoming too hard for the average person, or maybe they are. Some people complain that they're too easy, but really what I want to do is try to create something that does have that broader-based appeal. And while my own daughter is very good at video games and plays them quite a bit every day, she really doesn't like playing very difficult games. And I think there are a lot of people that are like that, where they might have a kind of a basic interest in picking up and playing games, and yet the level of strategy and the level of difficulty in games can be a real turnoff for a lot of those players. And this game here, Animal Crossing, is I think a little bit different in that it really doesn't have a difficulty level. And no matter whether you're a hardcore gamer or you're picking up a game for the first time, this game, it is not hard or easy. It's really kind of strange, I think. And so that's why I think this is actually kind of almost a dangerous product for us, because it doesn't reflect the one thing that I'm really good at, which is balancing games. Because there really didn't need to be any balance to a game that doesn't have any difficulty. The actual discussion began long ago with Mr. Tezuka and several of the other directors who worked on Yoshi's Island, and sat down and started to talk about, what type of a game can we create that would be new and unique. And that was kind of the beginning of that project. And actually, I know this is kind of going on a little bit long here, but I do have one more point, and that's that in Japan.
裁判終わりました。この間。
裁判で。
その時忙しかったんです。
はい。知ってます。中古市場を訴える裁判は終わって、中古販売は正当であるということになりました。はい。
So anyway, there's been a problem. There's been a problem in Japan, and this I think is an important point, is that a lot of the games in Japan have been, we've had this problem where people will play a game and be done with it and sell it, and you have a lot of games being sold used and purchased used, and I think that's a big issue for the industry to tackle, and this is one game that we're trying to tackle it with. And I think that really kind of the root of this problem of used games is that we've gotten to this age where most games are designed with a primary goal in mind, and once somebody achieves that goal, then they're done with the game, and they essentially just get rid of it. And I think that people spend a lot of money developing games like that, and I think that it's kind of led to this problem of used games. And I mean, personally, I see my games as kind of a tool, and I create my games with the idea that people can always use that tool as a means of entertainment. And so I think I've been pretty fortunate in that many of my games haven't ended up being sold used. But it still, I think, is an issue that we have to deal with. And this is a game that Mr. Tezuka is producing, and it really is a vast tool for entertainment. I think it has a year-long calendar with events planned throughout the entire year, and you just kind of live in this village and experience life in it. And it's the type of game that you play for maybe just a few minutes, or maybe just an hour a day. And every day you kind of experience life in this town. And so the basic idea behind the game is that you communicate with a number of different characters, and as a result of that communication, you'll get really basic benefits, sometimes money, sometimes items. And you'll use essentially the money and the benefits from these communication activities to enhance your own life by purchasing items for your house and whatnot. So in this one game you can have up to 4 people playing, and we've really designed it kind of based on your average Japanese family with maybe a younger sister and a brother and a mother and a father. So it's really kind of designed for an entire family to sit down and experience and enjoy. The game is, because of it has this actual time calendar with events planned throughout the year. I mean, in Japan we scheduled all the events to the Japanese calendar and had some special events. And so on Christmas when I got home from work, I actually made my kids sit down and do their homework and take a bath and everything before I would let them play the game and get in and enjoy the special event that was planned for that day. And so they were kind of upset because all the stores were closed when they finally got in to play the game. And so they were, really rushing around and running around town, and they finally ran into this kind of Santa Claus character that's in the game. And so they were just lucky enough to get the very special present that this kind of Santa Claus-like character gives you in the game on Christmas Eve. And so it's actually the kind of game where even if maybe when you're playing, if the store is closed, you could send a letter to your mother and ask her to do some shopping for you and pick some items up when she plays the game when the stores are open. So yes, I mean actually in Japan, it's kind of turned out just the way we expected, where kids will go to school in the morning, and while they're at school, their mom will pick the game up and play and leave letters for their children, and then their children will come home from school and play the game and read the letter from their mom, and maybe mom asks them to do something in the game and they don't do that. And that might prompt them to send a letter to their dad if they come home from working late at the office, and he'll sit down and play the game and have this letter from his kid, and it's kind of enhanced communication that way. And it's been great. We get a lot of fans, or a lot of letters from fans of the game in Japan, and it's really gone over quite well. The post office actually will allow you to get letters and send letters to people players living in your own town, as well as animals in your town. And you'll actually get letters from animals from other towns, and you can go to other towns and send letters to people in those towns. So yeah, we really started the project off with the idea that we wanted to create a game that would somehow encourage communication among family members and whatnot. And so that was kind of the seed for what grew into Animal Crossing. Basically, the more that you communicate, the more you're able to collect the very distinct and creative pieces of furniture and clothing and items that you can get in this game, and you can get only in this game. And actually, I'm a little lost here, and the reason behind that is that every person who purchases the game and plugs it in and starts their own town, the town is randomly generated. So every town, the terrain in it is going to be slightly different, and I'm not quite familiar with the terrain in this town just yet. And so really the game it's all about you having kind of your own personal world and really your own life where you're free to do what you want to do. And so that's really what makes it so fun to then go from your town or your world to your friend's world. And we're able to do that through the swapping of memory cards. So yeah, I mean, when your town is created, you're going to have different characters in your town at the outset than your friend will have in his or her town. And so as you go to more towns, you'll meet more of the animal characters in the game. And then as time passes in real life, time passes in the game, and as time passes, the tree will grow into a full-grown tree. And so that's one of the more fun elements of the game as well, is that the town changes as time passes, and you'll see trees growing up, and you can chop trees down. You'll see new characters moving into town, and some of your favorite animal friends will move out of town to other towns.
この間ね、友達から
Yeah, the other day I actually had a phone call from a friend of mine who had said that he was playing the game with his daughter, and he hadn't had time, and he hadn't played it in quite a while, and his daughter got really mad at him because she went into his house and there were cockroaches running all around, and she was really grossed out. And it's because he hadn't played in so long and hadn't cleaned up his house and taken care of things that he got cockroaches in there. So.
でさっき手塚の方からこうローテクのネットワークというか、僕らこれインターネットを
So yeah, we actually originally started this game with the idea that it would be an internet game, and but what happened is we developed the game was that we really came to realize that the internet isn't yet a platform through which everyone can play. And so while we had originally intended for people to be able to kind of swap furniture and things over the internet, we've since changed it so that they can do that through passwords or do it with the e-reader cards for Animal Crossing. So actually we do have on the Nintendo homepage in Japan, we do have internet service where we are able to provide people with passwords to kind of help with this the idea of building their community that way, and also of course the e-reader cards for Animal Crossing, which we released in Japan, and we've already done a second set on that. And those are selling quite well, and they really add to the functionality and kind of the whole feature, the real whole setup of the game. It's really great.
もちろん今日は宮本がプロデュースしたキータイトルをですねご紹介するのが主目的なんですけれども、
Of course, our main objective today is to introduce some of the key titles that Mr. Miyamoto is producing.
せっかくお集まりいただいたので、一つぐらいサプライズがあった方がいいと思って一つだけ用意しました。
But since we did have all of you join us today, we thought it might be nice if we had at least one surprise for you. So we'd like to say that we do, and we'll be showing that to you.
会場に液晶のスクリーン、こちらから正面から見ると右手に見えると思うんですが、それがあったと思います。
I'm sure you all saw our LCD screen, which it's out on the show floor right now, and you can also see a few of them on the right up there.
We're here at E3 and we're about to play Mario for the first time. Rock!
まだこの形でですね、これをいつどのような形で売るかっていうのを決めてませんし、値段も発表してません。あくまで今回参考出品です。
This is just out kind of to show it off. We haven't really decided at this point exactly how or in what form we're going to be releasing this or when it might happen. But it's just kind of to show off the technology of it and put it out there for you all to take a look at.
ただ画面が綺麗なのは見てご覧になって分かったと思うんですけれども、ゲームキューブには最初からこういうようなことをするためにデジタルアウトプットをつけてあって、それで余計な変換がないんで綺麗に作れるんですね。
And as I'm sure you could all tell from the graphics, it's a very high quality screen, everything looks great. But this is actually was for kind of add-ons like this that we added the digital output for the GameCube. So it's allowed us to really kind of make the system a lot more attractive to people from a number of different levels.
で今回の E3 にこの液晶スクリーンを用意できることになって、宮本といろいろ話してた中で、一人でですね、もちろんこの、ものをそのパーソナルモニターとして自分一人での、テレビのない場所で遊ぶっていうのも一つの遊びなんですけれども、もしこのスタイルのまま、複数のゲームキューブをですね、一つの場所に集めて、それぞれ専用の画面を持ってネットワークゲームをしたら面白いよねという話をちょっとしてました。
And so we're thinking of this product and talking with Mr. Miyamoto. Of course, obviously, we want it out there so that people could take their GameCube and play their games in places where they don't necessarily have access to a television screen. But one of the other topics we did discuss would be the possibility of bringing several GameCubes with these little monitors to maybe one area, linking them, multiple GameCubes together with multiple players playing on their own individual screen and having kind of a mini networked game there. So that is also something that we're talking about.
で、宮本がですね、セガの中さんと会った時に、ファンタシースターオンラインで、 持ち寄って遊んだりすることできないかなっていう話をしたんです。
And actually, when Mr. Miyamoto met with Mr. Naka from Sega and talked with him about Phantasy Star Online, the question came up, isn't there a way that maybe we could take Phantasy Star Online and make it a portable game and make it so you can take it around with you wherever you want to go?
で、そのお話をした後ですね、中さんから、それもいいんですけど、ちょっと僕考えてることがあってって言って、一つ提案をもらいました。
And so that was kind of the start of the conversation, but actually, Mr. Naka responded and he said, well, I mean, that would be a good idea, but there's actually something else that I've kind of been thinking about lately, and I have kind of a proposal that I'd like to share with you.
それで中さんはですね、今回のこの LCD スクリーンを見せるのにあたってファンタシースターオンラインをベースにしたですね、カードバトルゲームを作ってくれたんですね。
And so actually Mr. Naka from Sega was kind enough to, for the display of this LCD screen, create a card battle game based on Phantasy Star.
ご存知の通りカードゲームっていうのは自分の手の内が他人に見えちゃうとそれで戦略がさらけ出されてしまいますから自分の手が見えないことものすごく意味があるんでその方がこういう遊びにとって面白いんじゃないかという提案だったんですけど。
And of course, as you know, any kind of a card game, if the other players can see your hand, then that automatically just eliminates the strategy and the fun from the game. And so that is why we thought that perhaps a kind of card game where you have your own personal screen and have your own hand would be perfectly suited for something like this LCD screen.
それで今2台のゲームキューブは実はブロードバンドアダプターでのクロスケーブルでつながってます。
And actually, these two GameCubes up here on the podium are connected by a broadband cable that is linking these two systems.
で、その2社が一応対戦ができるように作ったんですけど、今日はちょっとゆっくり触っていただく時間もないですし、それはまたセガさん、これセガさんのタイトルですから、ゆっくりセガさんに発表していただくとして、今日ちょっと動いてるところをお見せしたいと思います。
And so we don't really have a whole lot of time for people to actually play these two games, but we do have a functioning card game based on Phantasy Star here that Sega has created. So we'll actually show you the games working, but we're not going to be able to allow people to play it today, unfortunately. And that's just because of the time limit and also because it is a Sega title, and Sega will be announcing it at their own pace as well.
昨日僕記者発表の席で
So as I mentioned yesterday in the press briefing, I do believe that we will, in the arcades, be able to produce arcade games on the Triforce board that will have 4-player linked play, like we have with Game Boy Advance. And so I could see that even games like that could come to a system like this with the LCD screen, and essentially, it wouldn't necessarily be the type of game that I would expect everyone to purchase, and kind of the same way that I don't expect everyone to be going online and playing games. But for those who really like to buy those high-end toys and little neat tech items, I think it's definitely a style of play that would appeal to them.